some winners and then we say let's go. So come on, it's time to watch the show. We're talking hardball, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. We're talking hardball.
Welcome into a Wednesday edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Albert Nguyen, and it is a wild, well, somewhat wild Wednesday so far on the diamond. We have 4 games going on right now. We have a few more first pitch coming up in a few minutes, so certainly a lot to digest and dissect. Albert, how are you this Wednesday afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in?
Yeah, I am in Texas. It's 1 p.m. today. Wednesday is getaway day, right, in the MLB. So a lot of games happening right now. You're right. 4 games, all four favorites are either down or tied 1-1, which is interesting for me. But I'm excited to just get into some of these games, but also the game coming up. I like the Cubs. I'm going to say it right off the bat. I like the Cubs here. First pitch is in about 19 minutes. First official play of the day. I'm firing.
All right, so you're going to fade Abbott as Horton goes for the Northsiders. We'll get into that game momentarily, but we do have 4 games going on right now. You mentioned the favorites that are in trouble, as we can say. We do have a 1-1 game right now, and I'm watching this one, Pirates and Giants. Giants did get a run in the top half of the 5th to tie it, so we're bottom 5. Leadoff runner gets on with a base knock to right. That's IKF. So now I believe McCutchen is up with Robbie Ray on the bump. Bottom 5, runner on first, nobody out as the Pirates try to retake the lead with Andrew Haney on the bump for the Buccos. Now, elsewhere, you mentioned the favorites are in trouble. A big favorite of the day was the Tigers, who got beat up yesterday. They lost to this Twins team with Paddock facing his old team. Now today, Flaherty's on the bump, and the Tigers just scored in the bottom of 3rd. Twins still lead, though, 3-2. They were, this was a coin flip game, so to speak. Or right now, it's Tigers were favored coming into this one. We're going to get into the Yankees game, but Orioles we're leading 4-0. They're up 4-1 over Ranger Suarez and the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Orioles playing spoiler right now with Rogers on the bump for the O's. And then the Mets. The Mets have been just slumping like no other. Cleveland Guardians up 3-0 in the 4th. We do have live action at Bet Rivers. You can get involved across the board. Albert, is there anything that interests you from a live standpoint as we update the Pirates now? Giants get a stolen base, but a strikeout. So it's runner on second, 1 out, and there's a catcher's meeting with Robbie Ray on the bump for San Fran. So low-scoring game involving these teams. Giants cruised yesterday, but we're in a tight one here in the 5th.
Man, the Mets have lost 7 out of 8 games, and the last 2 losses have been pretty devastating. It was 2-2 against the Guardians late in that game, and the Guardians scored, I believe, on an error, and then the Mets weren't able to get anything in the bottom of the 8th and the bottom of the 9th, lost 3-2. The game before that, it was 6-6 in extra innings. The Guardians actually walked the Mets bases loaded in the bottom of the extra innings, and they were unable to score. Obviously, Guardians then score in the next inning, and it was history. So tough break there. I would have been on the Mets today. I thought it would have been a great situational spot bounce back, but they're definitely going through a lull. Their offense is definitely struggling, and I guess to answer your question, I mean, no real angle in terms of live betting. I think some of these spots you might be able to still get pretty good odds on the underdog that is currently leading, right? And I would actually look at those spots.
Yeah, sometimes I definitely do that in hoops, or even football, where clearly the closing line was wrong. And that's something we can do as sports bettors, is because that's factored into the algorithm, right? So in all these games, to be specific, the team that was an underdog coming into the game, that closing line is involved into the algorithm of the current line. So the Guardians in this case are up 3-0, live line at Bet Rivers. is -5-0. Now it's bottom four, one out. So there's a lot of baseball left. But you have a team that's up 3-0 and a Mets lineup and everything is scuffling and been a disaster. Now, you're not going to get rich laying 590, but you can lay -2.5, -104. And you're going to get those extra ups regardless, because the Cleveland's the top of the ninth. So it's not one of those times where you're a home team and you don't cover 2.5, you're up 1 or 2 runs and you can't really get out of it. You mentioned the Twins, Tigers, or not, you didn't mention, but I mentioned them earlier. They're up 3-2, and it's a pick 'em game, -121 at Bet Rivers. This Tigers team obviously got handled in Philly. Then they have a nice comeback win on Monday. That was not the case yesterday. So they're not in dire straits like the Mets are per se, but it is a situation that's less than ideal, all things considered, with what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams that are heavy favorites heading into a game, you're starting to see now. I think they're getting a majority of the bets, not only from a handle perspective, but also the number of tickets. And I think a lot of these casuals are starting to lose money, Doug, because you know it's been such a I guess juicy sport, if you will, up to this point. But since the All Star break, a lot of these top teams are struggling, and I think it's bringing things back to the mean, which I personally love, just because I'm a contrarian better by heart. But I would say there's a couple teams that have definitely been underperforming, and the Tigers are one of them.
Speaking of underperforming, how about the New York Yankees? Just a wild ride. They've lost 5 straight. They are now 6.5 back in the American League East with the Red Sox ahead of them and then the Blue Jays in first place. Now, this is a wild, wild turn. You have Judge getting hurt, back after injury, Lighters on the bump with Carlos Rodon going for the Yanks. They're -136 favorites and the over-under's 8. I couldn't get involved with the Yanks. We talked about it yesterday. They were slight dogs, but now they're favored here. I know some sharp money is actually on the Yanks, but I don't respect it. Leiter's nothing to write home about, but Rodon's been nothing like he was to start the season. For me, it's Rangers or pass. Yesterday it was Rangers or pass. What say you?
Yeah, for this series, it's tough to sweep a team, Doug. At the end of the day, I know the Yankees are struggling. The Rangers, if you look at games one and games two of this series, is almost like they stole the game at the end. Game one, the Yankees were up by one, heading into the bottom of the ninth. Jacques Peterson hits a solo home run, and the Rangers were able to pull it out in extras. Last night in game two of the series, also pretty surprising there. It was 2-0. It was basically a coin flip ending until the very end. To me, I actually would agree with the sharp money. You mentioned they're on the Yankees today, but it's not something that I would personally put, my hard-earned money, just because they're two teams moving in opposite directions. You mentioned the Yankees in the East and losing out on not only Boston and Toronto, but if they get swept today, they're out of the wild card. The Rangers would actually jump them in the wild card, which is absolutely nuts to think about.
It is, and look, it is hard to sweep a team, but not always. Just ask the Miami Marlins and the Yankees from last weekend. I think you know this line feels right. That's the thing. I don't know. I don't think there's value per se, but there's no way I'd bet the Yankees here. I just can't. Like it's like the martingale or whatever you want to say. It's just not going to apply. Um, so I would not bet the Yanks. I would not lean into this. I will, like I said, I know a sharp group on the Yanks, but you know, baseball. I know really successful pro bettors who've had losing seasons sometimes in whatever sport, baseball included. So it's not something I'm in a rush to fire on, but it is fascinating. Given it's the Yankees, they have the big spotlight, and to your point that they could fall out of the playoff mix, I'm all for fading them in the yes/no playoff market. We've talked about it for like a month or so, but something I definitely wanted to mention. By the way, if you like what you hear on our shows, sign up for the newsletter, get exclusive tips and the free Insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. And please always like and subscribe. It's the currency here in the YouTube world. We really appreciate everyone getting involved in that regard, and we appreciate everyone getting involved in the conversation as well. And that means we have some comments here. We have Shane chiming in, "Go Rangers." Very simple, very direct. Gary Mead saying, "Just bet that Devin Williams will blow the save every time. You can't lose." Yeah, Yankees fans are certainly frustrated with Aaron Boone leaving in Devin Williams in that regard. So certainly a frustration for Yanks fans who were cruising. I mean, them and the Tigers were co-favorites to win the American League pennant not too long ago, about a month and change ago, but that is certainly not the case. We are inside of 10 minutes of first pitch at Wrigley Field. Albert, you said you like the Cubs here at home behind Horton. Abbott did get touched up in the last game, but he's a guy I've been betting on all season here on this show. I remember a live bet on a Friday. I laid the reverse line run line, and it was a great payout for the Reds, who were coincidentally at Wrigley Field to face the Cubs. Different situation here. Cubbies minus 148, plus 110 on the comeback. Over under is 7.5. Adam Osimo asking if we like it to go under. Corey, though, disagrees with you, Albert. He thinks Cubs are an auto fade at plus money for me at this point. What say you? Why do you like the North Siders?
Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit with the Yankees. It's just very hard to fade a team, especially at home. You'll see a lot. Sorry, sweep a team. You'll see a lot more sweeps by the home team, but not very often are you going to see the Reds come in and sweep the Cubs in Chicago. So that's number one. Number two, Horton is pitching really well. If you look at his last few starts, he's only allowing sub 3.5 hits in his outings. He's not going to go long. He's going to average about mid 70s to mid 80s in terms of pitches. That goes for 4 2/3, maybe 5 innings. But I would say the pitching advantage, in my opinion, especially if you look at recent trends, it's going to be Horton. And then the Cubs, that offense is going to come around eventually. They've only had 2 runs in game one run yesterday. I think they're going to be able to, get the bat to the ball and be able to manufacture some runs. To answer Adam's question, though, when it comes to the over under, I personally would not touch that. Even if I expect a little regression for the Cubs offense to do something today, I don't know if the Reds offense can do something. So for me, it's more of I feel very confident on the side here. I know the Cubs after this series, they're going to go back on the road and have to play the Cardinals. But I don't think they're going to leave Chicago with a bad taste in their mouth. I think they're going to get this last win for them.
So you mentioned the recent form. Horton has not given up a run in 3 straight starts, but it's not like Abbott's been bad. He just hasn't been unhittable like he was for most of the season. So that's something to keep in mind. I really like Abbott in this regard. He's been awesome. But look, he's got a 2.15 ERA on the season, a WHIP 1.11. But to your point, Cade Horton's been fantastic, and he's a guy I certainly wouldn't mind getting behind in that regard. So something to keep in mind. By the way, we do have an update from some scores going on. Tigers have taken the lead with a 2 spot, so they now lead 4-3 as that game heads to the top of the 4th. So we already have 7 runs through 3 innings. Mets, feeble offense, bottom 4, so they are still getting blanked. 3-0 Guardians, top 5. 4-1 Orioles in the 6th. So that's getting a little hairy for Phillies fans who come off facing the Tigers, get the Sunday night baseball, big win, dramatic home run by Schwarber, and now the Orioles are taking it to them a little bit. That that total of 8 seems a little high. It's 4-1 in the bottom of the 6th. Now, Phillies have a runner on, 1 out, so how that goes in the bottom 6 will dictate a lot. In terms of Horton, I would look at the under. I think Abbott's fantastic. I do agree that the Cubs lineup will eventually start hitting. I don't know if it's today though against Abbott. Horton, we get guilty of seeing what reacting to what you last saw, things like that. But it's hard not to want to bet the under. I mean, unless the wind's blowing out at Wrigley, which I don't see is the case,
No,
it's hard not to like the under here.
Yeah, the under is aided by the win. It's definitely a crosswind, actually a little bit hurting now that I'm looking at it again. It does update a lot. First pitch is in about 5 minutes. So we do know afternoon games historically has gone under a little more often than nighttime games or primetime games, and so that part makes a lot of sense to me. But I agree with you; it would be under or nothing for me. But I'm definitely on the Cubs.
Okay, so Albert's officially on the Cubs, -148. I'm officially on the under 7.5, -122 as I type it in to our sheet. So I'm going to play the under 7.5. Can I interest you in a Nerfy at all? I don't love it necessarily in this spot. There's certain pitchers who are really good. Like Giolito's really bad in the first inning. But thought I'd throw it out there. We can get some action. The problem is it's -143, the Nerfy.
Would you be more confident in a Nerfy? Let's say you like the side. Hypothetically, let's say you like Chicago here. Would you be more confident in laying that juice on the side or a Nerfy? Because I'm not a big Nerfy or Yerfy guy personally.
Yeah, I'm not, one of these people on social media who loves to get involved in crazy stuff and just tries to be a Nerfy expert just because it, grades so quickly. I feel like the price is right. I wouldn't play it, but I do think the Abbott is pretty nasty. I think the Cubs, with PCA in the middle of the lineup, things like that, that second inning, they can do some damage more than sometimes the first. So that's something to keep in mind. Um, I'm not in a rush to bet on the Cubs right now. They've lost 3 of 4. Yesterday was a clean Nerfy for both teams. I wouldn't bet the Yerfy, but I think the Nerfy's probably the play here. Adam Osimo likes the Cubs in the under at +200.
Let's go, Adam.
That's interesting too. Low scoring pitchers duel. Horton hasn't given up a run in 3 straight starts. Maybe you can ride that wave if recent performance or recent form. So we'll have first pitch momentarily. We'll probably be able to grade the Nerfy by the end of the show if the pitchers live up to their responsibilities. We have other games that are starting relatively soon as I scroll down here on Bet Rivers to check out some other games. So Yanks are going to be underway, bottom of the hour ish. And then we also have the Dodgers around the corner with the Cardinals. Dodgers bats woke up, bounced back. Otani on the bump for the Blue Crew. Libertor goes for the Redbirds. I've joked that the Cardinals have had the Dodgers number over the years, but that really doesn't make sense, right? Or at least impactful. Dodgers are heavy, understandably favorites, -240, over under 9. Over is juice -124. It's hard to bet an under in a Dodgers game, just given what their offense is capable of doing. So I wouldn't be in a rush to do that. And with Otani, he's not human as a hitter. Pitching, the fact that he can pitch is what makes him special. But I don't think he's lights out, like some of these other aces we've discussed.
Well, he hasn't been lights out this year. And for those who don't remember, he in his last start he left early because of cramping, right? A lot of people were worried about his injury concern. It was just cramping. The fact that he's back today is a great sign for the Dodgers. With that said though, even if Otani is in there, super talented, amazing stuff, he's going to be on a pitch count or an innings count. So he's going to go at most three and a third innings. So you're going to look into that Dodger bullpen, which is something that they've struggled with all season long. They're going to have to rely on that offense. And you know what's changed? You know why they're scoring offense is because Max Muncy is back. Mookie Betts was struggling. Freeman was struggling. Otani is still struggling. But the guy that really makes it all work, and we saw that throughout the last like 4 or 5 years, Doug, is Max Muncy. Like, give that guy some credit. And he's put this offense kind of, he's not carrying the offense, but he's kind of like the glue between the folks in the front and then the people towards the back of the lineup.
All right, I was hitting some buttons and messed up with my microphone. Yeah, no, Muncy has been the key. He's one of my favorite Dodgers as a Dodger fan. I mean, what he can do is pretty awesome. He ignites a crowd, and they need the bats, especially when Mookie Betts has just not been the same. So it's a little concerning as a Dodgers fan. And Chris Macero's talked about it on this show, just as like a virus or something's been off But Mookie's one of the best athletes in all of sports, just given his ability to play multiple positions and things like that. So, I still have faith that maybe he can turn things around before the playoffs begin. So, no play for you. It's a big number. We'll see how far Otani goes, but minus 240 is the price. Now, the Red Sox have been one of the best teams in baseball. And as I update scores, the Phillies did get nothing going in the sixth. So we're now through six. Orioles up 4-1. I mentioned the over under on the live market felt pretty high. That number is now 7.5. So that makes more sense. I'd still look to the under, but this O's pen is nothing I want to, go in the foxhole with, so to speak, the financial foxhole, if you will. I'm bouncing around a few screens. This is tough to monitor 4 games and do it all in that regard. So mention the Red Sox. Dustin May is going to make his Boston debut. He comes over from the Dodgers. Michael Wacha, obviously we know him from the St. Louis Cardinals day when they won the World Series. But Red Sox, not the biggest favorite, all things considered, only minus 137. The comeback plus 115, over under 8.5. I think May's great. His nickname was Ginger Guard. He just never got it together with the Dodgers, and I still wish they still had him. I think his upside's there. I think the Red Sox are a good player. I don't think much of Wacha at all, but he has proved me wrong and cost me some money of late. He's thrown 4 straight starts, given up 1 earned, exactly 1 earned, 4 straight starts. Hard to argue with that, but pitching at Fenway is a little different.
Pitching at Fenway is very different. Yeah, and there is a little echo in my mic, but we'll get that figured out. But yeah, the thing with Boston, Doug, they've been on fire. 9 wins out of 10 games, and even before the All-Star break, if you guys remember, they traded. They gave away Devers, and then they went on this huge winning streak. So they've been one of the best teams in baseball, and I think that it's a Boston player, nothing at all. But I would be cautious on backing Dustin May right now, just because he hasn't pitched well. Even the last 2 starts for the Dodgers, he's given up, 4, 7, and 2 earned runs in those games. Not something I would be confident in.
I mean, look, Walker's been fantastic, right? Like I said, 1 earned allowed in each of the last 4 straight starts. So I'm not in a rush to bet against him, but the way the Red Sox have been hitting and how they're playing is really, I mean, they've won 7 straight games. So to have a team that's won 7 straight minus 137, I mean, it's tempting, right? So I don't know. I'll probably be kicking myself because I really like betting on Dustin May, but I don't know if this is the right performance. This Royals lineup, I don't want to say huge names, but I think the names are a little bit better than they really are. So I don't love them, but I would bet the Red Sox. I'm going to pass. It's Red Sox or pass for me, but I'm going to pass just because what Wacha has been able to do of late. We talked about it on the show yesterday. I'm kicking myself still. The Milwaukee Brewers, best record in baseball. They were so cheap. Had the going now is I forget who was on the bump, but it just looked like too easy of a play. Chris and I laughed, and then of course, they cruised, and I was texting Chris during the game. We were laughing, kicking ourselves. Brewers were the right side yesterday from start to finish. However, the Braves are favored today, minus 143. I don't know if the Braves are still being evaluated like they were coming into the season, but they've been the second worst team from the money line betting. Now, Strider's going for Atlanta. Quintana is going for Milwaukee. But this Brewers team, like I said, best record in baseball. It's been nothing but disappointment for Atlanta. What do you make of this here?
Spencer Strider is a little rated in the market. He's a good pitcher, but I think the market shows that he just doesn't live up to the money line that's you have to lay for him. And so when you see Strider today, who's given up 7-5, 7 hits in his last 5 starts, it's never easy. It's never a clean start. He also walks more than Quintana, and so to me, I think it's another Brewers play, and we know the Braves have already picked up. The team here is not gonna make the postseason this year, one of the most disappointing teams this season. And I think from like a body language point, from a motion point, I'm not gonna back the Braves.
You're not going to back what? I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna back Atlanta because I know that their heart's not in.
Now you like to play contrarian. Is this a good contrarian spot to take the Braves here with the heavy juice?
Usually, yes, but as you can see, like the juice plays the very, the 125 to 175 since the All-Star break, they've been doing horribly, and I know that for a fact just because I've been tracking it. And so this is another team that falls right into that number, and for those reasons, I'm just gonna lay off.
All right. Updating some other scores. Orioles tacked on another run, top 7. So it's 5-1, 1 out runner on first. Mets still scoreless. We're at the top of the 6th, 3-0 Guardians with the lead. So Mets still getting blanked, I should say. Cubs are underway with the Reds. Cincy has a runner on second off Cade Horton, but 2 outs. So we'll see if he can get out of it and those nerfy betters can stay alive to the bottom half of that first inning. So I'm going to pass on the Brewers. I do like what Adam Osimo said. This is clever, and I might have to mooch this or pilfer it. Why are the Brewers underdogs? WTF. Wrong team favored. Very clever. The WTF. Wrong team favored. That's very, very good. So well done. You got the favorite spelled the Canadian way because I know he's a Blue Jays fan, so maybe he's north of the border. So Adam Osimo, a regular here on Betting Weekly Hardball and Betting Weekly Fast Break for that matter. Speaking of which, Wes Reynolds and I will be top of the hour with Betting Weekly Fast Break. Albert and I were both yesterday. We each went 1-1, just lost a little juice. It happens. We were both on the over in the Fever Sparks game, so that did well. And we'll see. We'll see with the rest of the WNBA slate. I know you're back on the show, I believe, on Friday with Sarah. So that's top of the hour, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Let's keep it going with some other games now. Games that caught my eye. The A's and Nationals. This Nationals team has lost 7 straight. I forget who it was. I think it was Mackenzie Gore was interviewed and just saying how embarrassing it is getting crushed at home lately. Cavalli goes for the Nats. Springs goes for the A's, who are significant favorites, all things considered, on the road. It's still the Athletics, but this Nats team's a disaster. They're spiraling, but I do like it when players are frustrated with the losses and things like that. I almost want to think they're going to come out and snap out of it, but I need more than plus 123 to back a Washington team that's been scuffling, to say the least.
Yeah, and this Washington team is going to be rolling out Cavalli, who's only had one start in the last 3 or 4 years. And in that one start, he had 7 earned runs. So no confidence here on Washington to make it competitive. But the line to me seems a little fishy. So that's the reason why I'm going to lay off. But Oakland's offense has been on fire. They just scored 16 runs yesterday. They were hitting the ball all over the park. I think they had like 30 hits from the third yesterday. And so that's a team I definitely do not want to bet against right now.
Okay, another game that certainly matters from a pennant standpoint, playoff standpoint, is the Nats. Sorry, Nats. We just talked about the Nats. The Padres and Diamondbacks. Padres playing some good ball of late. They've now shaved that deficit to just 3 games behind the Dodgers in the NL West. A couple weeks ago, we talked about on this very program, Chris Massaro and I both took 18-1 on the Padres to win the division. So they're a $1.50 road favorites here. Wild game last night. Diamondbacks came back, tied it, went to extras, and then Padres put up a big number. I think it was 10-5 was your final. Pretty crazy stuff in that regard. Now, their favorites here on the road at minus $1.50. Nasty Nestor Cortez goes for San Diego. Desclafani goes for the Snakes. Pretty ho-hum game. I can't get involved with Cortez's road chalk. Not running to the window to bet this game, although I think we could see some runs here.
We should, right? Both pitchers have a combined ERA of about 18 in this game. So you would expect a lot of runs. We have 2 teams that are very talented when we talk about their bats, but I would say it's hard to pick a side here just because both teams have been really disappointing as of late. Arizona, I believe, is only 3-7 in their last 10. That includes, I think 6 straight losses before this series, and so I'm gonna lay off this game. It would be Padres or nothing at all just because I know they're motivated, they're playing for something, and that lineup, 1 to 9 is really hard to get out.
Yeah, it is. I feel like the price is right here. 9.5 is a big number. I was hoping to be 9 for me to make an official play, but nothing involved. By the way, the Cubs did get out of it. So it was an error on the Cubs. So Horton's still pitching, beautifully. 2 strikeouts in the first, no hits, no walks. We're in the bottom half of the first, and Abbott gives up a runner on he walks the first batter. So Abbott walks Horner. So now Justin Turner, the former Dodger, the big redhead, is at the dish. The Nerfy's halfway home, but we got, we got trouble here with Abbott on the bump. But my 7.5, just given how Horton looks, favorable. We'll see how Abbott does on the bump. But that covers the games I wanted to discuss. Are there any games that caught your eye that you wanted to, touch on, or some totals or sides or things like that? Turner did get out, so runner on first, Suzuki at the dish.
No, I'm following the postseason futures, if you will. Like, we're getting to that time now, and so if you look at some of the division bets, some of the wild card bets, right now the AL West is really interesting with Seattle and the Rangers basically tied or a game away. Houston is ahead of everybody, but it's only by 4 games, and the AL West always beat up on each other at the end of the season. So if Texas or if Seattle more series against Houston Astros, that lead can evaporate really quickly. And then obviously in the AL East, we already mentioned it with Toronto, the Red Sox, and the Yankees. The Yankees continue to slide, not only division out, but I think the wild card is going to be out because Seattle made so many great moves at the deadline. They're going to be continuing to win. The Rangers are on fire. Bruce Bochy not signing a big bat is such a Bruce Bochy move, right? He already has 2 really, really great starters. He picked up another one at the deadline to be their number 3 arm. So I'm, as a Rangers fan, I'm pretty excited about that. And then the NL West with the Padres, the Giants, and the Dodgers, that battle is great. But I think if the Dodgers can get healthy, and I know, Doug, you're a Dodgers fan, they have a ton of talented arms. If just half of that stable is healthy, they're going to be able to go on a run to end the season and then peak at the right time for the postseason.
Awesome. I agree with you in that regard. I think the Dodgers do ultimately get it done. Every once in a while, some social media, some guys will DM me some tickets they have. I have a guy who's been 5 figures on the Dodgers to win the West, things like that. It seems extreme. So I just can't pull the trigger in that regard. Because I just don't think there's the prices. Anything can happen in these baseball series, and just not in a rush to bet those low prices. But I do think the Dodgers prevail. But a lot's hinging on bets to kind of figure it out and get it going, right? I'm just not optimistic with bets right now from what I've seen, and it could be something, like I said, medical that we've
Yeah,
talked
I
about.
mean, he is coming off a pretty bad injury. He lost a ton of weight, so he lost, strength, speed, bat speed. He's always going to have his hands. He has amazing hand-eye coordination. He's one of the most athletic guys in the league. But, if he's playing 15, 20, 25 pounds underweight, that takes a lot of, energy out of you. But I'm not worried about the Dodgers offense, to be honest. I mentioned it earlier with Muncy back. Teoscar's also hitting better in the 5 hole, right? Instead of being depending on early in the lineup. I'm not worried about their offense. I think if they can get a healthy stable of starters, and when I say healthy stable, if they can get 2 legitimate starters, I think they definitely have a legitimate shot at another World Series title.
They were close to losing to the Padres, right? They were down 2-1 in a best of 5 last year. The year in the bubble they won, they were down to the Braves. I want to say, was it 3-1? They were on the verge of getting eliminated, and they won 3 straight, and then obviously handled the things in the World Series. By the way, the Nerfy cashes. It got the first and third, 2 out. Abbott did give up a hit, but he gets out of it. Gets Pete Crow Armstrong to make an out. So the Nerfy cashes, we are through one at Wrigley Field on the north side of Chicago. The updated over under, once Bet Rivers does the calculations and put it up, we'll get that to you momentarily. In terms of the other games, Orioles still up 5-1. Guardians still up on the Mets 4-0. Twins have answered the Tigers. It's now 6-4 Minnesota on the road as a dog, as Albert was saying earlier in the show, that the Dogs were either tied or winning. This Pirates Giants game's been nice. The Pirates have already gone to the pen, got out of a mini jam. Robbie Ray's still out there, but the Buccos lead 2-1. So the Giants scored top of the fifth. Pirates answered. So that inning was a draw. So it's 2-1 Pirates, and they're going to the bottom of the seventh inning, if I am not mistaken. As for that Cubs game, I don't know if there's an injury. I think Encarnacion got hurt, but we are now at 6.5. So a scoreless inning, and it's the same juice, minus 122. So it goes from 7.5 to 6.5, because you're going to have the bottom of the lineup, so that you figure the second and third, especially that you got through PCA with the Cubs lineup. So Abbott doesn't have to face him in the second. So that's why. So I would look to scoreless second inning juice. Let's just look that up. I want people to get a familiarity with live betting and stuff like that. And Chris was laughing at me earlier, in the week when we last did this, when some day games, or maybe it was a week ago. But I think this is where there's value in that regard. So if you can get a live number on the second inning, I would bet no run. Things like that always interest me in that regard. So I'm looking at the Bet Rivers app. So second inning to have no runs, to have no runs, is minus 200. Wow. I actually think there's value there. I do, just given the pitchers involved and where they are in the lineups.
I like it. No, I would say the most important part of that is not the pitching staff, but where they are in the lineups. And both offenses have been struggling this entire series. So I agree with you there.
You know what? I'm going to make that an official play. Second inning, under a half run, minus $2 in the Cubs Reds game. So, everyone's like, oh, you're a junkie. It's like, no, I don't bet first pitch, right? The micro betting that's come under fire for the Cleveland Guardians. But I do think there's edges in that regard. But because, again, I think the algorithms use the closing number, things like that. And I think there's value there. And so I get involved in those situations that do interest me in that regard. So that we won't get that graded on the show. All right. So we already have a runner out and a second runner out. Wow. It's 2 out, quick 2 outs there for the Reds in the top half of the second. Or is my game cast all messed up? Okay, no, it's good. It said first and third too, so maybe I was all over the place. Okay, so yeah, I just think those are where the edges are and things like that. Checking in on the crew. So City by the Bay says, just like yesterday, going back with the White Sox, team total over 2.5, minus 130. So we've talked a lot about the Cubs. And we didn't mention the White Sox. This is a team that's pretty forgotten, all things considered. They're up facing Seattle. He said he did it yesterday, and they're facing George Kirby, who's been pretty solid at times. Jonathan Cannon going for the Southsiders. Seattle's a tough place to play. They've also obviously added some bats in the trade deadlines, with Suarez being the big one. Any opinion there before we let the people go? All right, so we lost Albert. That's just live television, as they say. So that happens. Crazy stuff, all things considered. So that game's 7.5, but City by the Bay likes the White Sox over their team total, and that's something we will keep in mind. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. We always appreciate everyone's time. Adam Osimo will be back, or Adam the Bull will be back involved tomorrow. I'll be this is my last Hardball show for the week, but like I said, top of the hour, Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'll be on with Wes Reynolds. One game in the W. We'll look at a lot of futures, some big trades the last few days. with the Lynx adding a big piece, the Storm adding a big piece, and tomorrow is the WNBA trade deadline. So maybe some other moves between now and then, but we'll certainly break down some futures, some yes, no to make the playoffs. I think there's really interesting games, all things considered, and we have a full slate tomorrow, or an interesting slate tomorrow, I believe 3 games. So that's the latest there. Join us in about 20 minutes, but that's going to do it for this edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. For Albert Nguyen, everyone else behind the scenes who does such an awesome job, I'm Doug Kezirian. Good luck with all your wagers tonight, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.